So did anything happen yesterday? Now, if you don't know, last night Arsenal got the here we go for Noni Madueke, which has definitely caused a big stir on social media, which was to be expected. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the signing and overall trying to see what Arsenal saw in him to try and make sense of what is this confusing deal on paper. But let's get into it. Now, if you've watched any of the videos on this channel, you will know that we made two videos on Madueke last week, a tactical video and a video wrapping up the transfer news. But in them, I was not really that confident that this deal would go through, especially with the amount of hate that the fans were giving it. Now, obviously, that is not the case, and it's got the here we go yesterday by Fabrizio, which has also been co-signed by David Ornstein, which looks to set a deal for around about £52 million to bring the Chelsea winger to the club. Now, obviously, I'm aware of everything that's gone on in the last week before this transfer has the confirmation, with the amount of petitions online with 2,000 people signing it that they didn't want Madueke, and the hashtag no to Madueke obviously trending on Twitter at big points. So it's fair to say I can quite clearly see that a lot of the fan base aren't happy with this signing. Now, if any of you do follow me on Twitter, I've been very outspoken on there over the last couple of weeks, and I've mentioned multiple times trying to make sense of the Madueke deal, and I think I've come to terms with what my opinion of the deal overall is and what we know about everything going on. But I do think it is still something you're going to have to make your own opinion on. Now, there are a multitude of reasons why people aren't happy with this signing. I think the first one is mainly that he is from Chelsea, and now Arsenal have officially signed 6 attackers in Arteta's reign, with 4 of them being Chelsea, if you count Havertz obviously a part of that list, which I probably wouldn't, which does look like a crazy stat. And obviously the fact we've already signed Kepa, people are kind of sick of all these Chelsea links and Chelsea signings, which I completely understand. I also think the price point is the real concerning point for everyone, and probably myself included. £52 million is not exactly cheap money for a club that don't like spending and haven't really gone out and spent much money in the past on someone that we are being told is a backup to Saka. Given Saka minutes, which makes sense, that is absolutely fine. But is he going to play on the left-sided now? We've had reports that maybe he could be given left-sided minutes, and he doesn't look the worst player there in the world, but he has only played 11 professional games there, at least at club level, in his entire career. So I'm not sure if that should be the route that we go. And first of all, we will go through the positives there. So I think the main positive about him as a player is that he is actually something different that we don't have. Now, if you want to see a full tactical breakdown, obviously go and watch the video last week. But he is basically a player that is really good in long stretches because he's quick and can cover ground very easily and is good at dribbling in them as well. But also someone that makes things happen in the final third against low blocks. Madueke is one of the players in the league that receives the ball quite early and will instantly run at the players to get into the box. He has good shot location last year where you can see his shots are very close to the goal and in great areas, and fundamentally he shoots a lot in good areas, and I think that the luck will come to him. Now, when I watch Madueke, and I've watched him for a long time and I have been a fan favourite, I did a tweet all the way back in 2024 where I said he was a top player, and I still fundamentally believe that. I think he is a brilliant player that brings things that we don't have, and that directness that people have been talking about with Semenyo or other players in the past, like an Mbuemo as well, he does have. He just maybe doesn't have the goals and assists to back it up on the output. Now, ultimately, he is still 23 years old. I think he's 6 months younger than Bukayo Saka, so around about the same age, and he has relative experience. He's played at the highest level. He's played at high levels that you're going to see many backups looked for. People like Bakayoko and Kubo, I've said before. Fundamentally, Madueke is just a better player than both of them and has played at a high level for more of a consistent time. And even if you compare some of Madueke's stats to someone like Kudus, who's just gone to Tottenham, or an Mbuemo, his stats do look quite good underlying over that, and I think I can see why the data team love him, because underlying stats are really popping for this guy. Now, the other major positive is that the team may not make complete sense of him in there, and we will go into it, but I do think fundamentally we needed a Bukayo Saka replacement. Maybe not a priority, but definitely a very important thing this summer. I've been making videos for years now, and every single summer my to-do list has a Saka backup on there. Last year it did, the year before it did, and all the time I keep saying that we need to give him less time because he is going to get a big injury which will affect him. Obviously, unfortunately, he got that last year and was out for 3 months, which was really detrimental to the team's progression, and you can argue we don't have many other good forwards, so maybe buying that first would be a good point. I think that's a fair point to argue. But we needed someone to come in who had maybe the same level of directness or at least something going for him. Obviously, we had Sterling, not the best. Nwaneri was good last year on the right wing. Obviously, not perfect. He's still learning that role. Interesting to see whether Arsenal really consider him as a right winger. And with the reports, it kind of looks like we don't, and we see him more as a 10 player. Now, Madueke will come in and play considerable minutes. And something I do think is quite interesting, I've seen quite a lot of people say this on the internet, is how teams are being built from the elite in the Premier League. You are starting to see constant players get bought for huge amount of sums just to give depth in there. Tottenham have just bought Gibbs White £60 million on his release clause when they already have Madison, Kulusevski and just signed Kudus, arguably players that can all play in the same position. Now obviously they are versatile and they have roles where they can move into, but ultimately it's about padding out that squad. And I think you've seen the same with Wirtz coming in early where it doesn't make complete sense because is he going to play on the left? Is he going to play attacker midfield? But teams need more pressure and they need more players to be able to come in and give that support, and sometimes that is costing 50 to 60 mil. I think Madueke, the price is really putting people off and I get it. I do think it's around £40 million which is set and the rest may be on add-ons, and I also think that is around about the price that is market value. If you're critical of the price overall because you think it's an overpayment, that is fair enough, but fundamentally how the market is working, every winger is around 40 to 70 mil in the same bracket, even if they've got less experience or more in different areas. I also think as well when we talk about wingers, people look at goals way too much, people look at that output way too much, when wingers are a common example of players that just blow up over season, maybe a different environment, maybe a different role in the team. And I think Madueke, when you talk to people like analysts and talk to all these data people, they always talk about how they feel like he's getting unlucky and feel like he can reach that next level. And I've watched Madueke a lot and I've made my own judgment about him, and sometimes you have to delve deep into the stats to maybe find the things that are going to be effective, and I do think that's not that hard to Madueke. He is a top winger and will be a talent for the club and is incredibly underrated and has been a long time because he's at Chelsea and whatever they're doing with their big squad. Now that is probably the big things for the positives. Now when the negatives come up though, there is still quite a lot there. While I said that about the fee, I do agree that the fee is a lot given where we are in the market just today. We haven't signed a striker yet. I expect Woklz maybe to be done in the next few days, but that's still not done as the time of recording. We haven't signed a left winger, which we are promised, maybe a Rodrigo. Who knows what's going on there? And even Eze, we don't know if we're fully going to go in for him, even though there is some indication that Arsenal want to have that signing made. Now, with all this in mind, the fact that we needed forwards going into the summer and we've only signed Madueke so far, and he's the first one that we've decided to buy, is concerning. He wasn't even on the radar for many people. I did loads of winger positions and I never considered him because I just didn't think for the price and a backup right winger, he makes much sense. I know we were talking about in Burma at the start of the summer, but I did not think he would be going for the amount of money that he is. Now maybe that is the price to get a right wing backup with Premier League experience. If that is the case, then I think it's absolutely fine. But we can't just use that to not buy players in other positions. Eze has to come in, or Rodrigo, or both arguably, not even thinking about a Victor Woklz or Wally Watkins up front, who also needs to happen. And I think most of the negativity from fans of remembering that we don't get the players that we want, and I completely understand that at the end of the day, but I do want to reserve judgment over the whole transfer window until the end, or at least until a couple of weeks where we get more of an indication. Because right now we have no idea what Arsenal are doing. There's deals going out for these random players, things are happening so quickly. Suddenly we got this Madueke deal done in about a week and no one even really knew it was a thing about a week and a half ago, which shows how quick we can act when we want to. I'm still quietly positive about Rodrigo, but I still don't know what's going on with that situation. He needs to make his decision next week. And someone like Eze, I think we have a full run at getting because Tottenham have got Gibbs White and Kudus, and a lot of the other big teams like City and Liverpool have already got their attacking midfielder in, so arguably you could find work for Eze quite easily. Now there's a lot more questions around the team then. Where does Ethan Nwaneri play? Because I've always said that I want him to be back up for either attacking midfield or right wing, but not both. But with an Eze coming in, as much as he is a left-sided player and a right-footed, so maybe a little bit different there, he is a player that can play in that attacking midfield role, and if we play a double pivot, will probably play there quite a lot. He is also a player that can play on the left as well, of course, and that might not bother Nwaneri, but Nwaneri now can't really play right wing with Madueke being there. Madueke, I expect, is going to operate that right wing a lot because I just don't think he's a left winger. He can play there a little bit, I guess, and it is quite concerning where you see the progression. Now I'm really not that bothered overall. I actually think an Eze coming in is perfectly fine because he's 27, Nwaneri's 18. There's a big enough age gap there where he will get time, and also Eze will probably play on the left and can play alongside Odegaard or Nwaneri if we want to go for it in different games, so I don't think that really affects it as much as this Madueke deal probably does. And I do think if Madueke is this third signing that I've been going on about about, and a lot of other people have, or even fourth sign at this rate. We don't even know what's going on. I like it. I actually think he's a really good player, but I would have wanted a more versatile player. I know people have issues with Kudus, but I think for the price, Kudus was okay. But I do think there's a lot more up front for that. So obviously, I don't know if we'd be able to afford it. And if he'd really want to be a backup in them roles, because that's something you've got to think about. These players won't want to come in to be backup. Now, what I will say on the whole thing about signing him from Chelsea, I ultimately don't really care. I don't care where we get players from. I don't think it shows any depiction of where and how good these players are. We signed 2 players from City and no one cared. Everyone saw that as the level. Chelsea are a good team. They have a lot of players they're not using, and people weren't having the same arguments when Andre Santos was linked a couple of weeks ago. So I don't really understand it with the Madueke thing. If you don't like him as a player, that's fair enough. I think he is a difficult player maybe to really see his quality straight away. His dribbling isn't aesthetically very pleasing, a bit like Saka, you could argue. He's also not the best at output, and I think that will put him down a lot of people's eyes. But I'm telling you that this guy is good, and he might not come in and be brilliant for Arsenal. At the end of the day, he might just be the backup that we've been looking at that can actually push our team. But I do think the overreaction of someone like Madueke has been quite clear and quite disrespectful. Not only has obviously all the comments been made by people online, but I just don't think people are trying to understand why this transfer is happening. I think people are just so quick to criticise. You don't have to like Arteta and like everything he does, but saying this is the end of Arteta and this is where things are going down for him is crazy. He has no internal heat on him. The Arsenal club don't see it like that way. Externally, we may be annoyed about some of the things he does, and people may say I defend him too much because I think he's a good manager, which I can't believe is a crazy thing nowadays. But ultimately, if he wanted this player, he wanted this player. He's going to live and die by it at the end of the day, and we can't judge before it's even happened. And ultimately, yes, there is issues, I think, with the recruitment of Arteta. I've said multiple times that at forward areas, we've seen the recruitment we've brought in. It's even not risky enough. He's scared sometimes, and I don't think it is good enough to really push the team. Well, we've got definitely risky signings coming in. If a Woklz is coming in, if Madueke is coming in, they are different to what we've had before, and we are taking a risk on players that are good but need to improve still, or maybe change a little bit to adapt to our system. And I won't sit here and say Arsenal signings have been bad, because I think majority of the signings under Arteta have been very good. And I just think some of the arguments around it are a little bit misinformed. There's many talented people that have wrote pieces that I'd go and recommend. Billy Carpenter's one. There's one on Scouted as well about Noni Madueke if you want to read that. And it gives you a little bit more of an idea of why Arsenal might be interested in this sort of profile and as a person. And we're talking about deals, they're all going to have pros and cons. And at the end of the day, I just think that he's already on an upwards trajectory of having to prove stuff to people, which I hate with the Arsenal fan base. We had the same with Havertz, we had the same with Ramsdale. It's fine to not understand a signing, but to ridicule them and send them abuse before they've even signed, it's not that family mentality that they've built inside the club. That is just pack mentality, going out to find other people and hate it. Now, overall, I think it is a good signing. I think the price is a little bit too much, and if that stops us getting other players, then yes, we can criticise that heavily. But as a player, I have no issues with the player himself. I think he's actually really good. Exactly what we needed, and away from the rest of the deal, I think it is fine. I also think his wages are incredibly cheaper, so people talking about this 20 mil gap to Rodrigo is quite misinformed, because the wages do make a big point. Now, let me know in the comments what you guys think. I appreciate you guys as always, of course, and I'll see you in the next one.